One of the great challenges in communication is learning how to connect with people. Whether you're talking to one person or addressing a group, this ability to identify with others is about building a bridge. And what's the purpose of a bridge? To make the flow easier, to create understanding, and to move from one place to another without obstruction. Building that bridge begins with something real, something you both have in common. For example, if you're married and talking to someone who's also married, that's a straightforward connection. I'm married, you're married. I've got children, you've got children. Now the conversation has a foundation, something to stand on. But what happens when the differences are more apparent? I'm a man, you're a woman. That's a bit more complicated. Yet even here you can look for common ground. Maybe you both have kids or work at the same place. Those shared experiences can serve as stepping stones. Relationships, especially between men and women, bring unique challenges. A man gets married and hands his wife a list of roles he expects her to fill. Mother, lover, teacher, cook, chauffeur, housekeeper. She looks at the list and says, that's quite the load. And she has her expectations too. She says, conquer the world and be home by 5. He looks at her and says, oh, that's a tall order. Yet in that challenge lies an incredible opportunity. When a man and a woman, or any two people, work together with understanding, they don't just add to each other. They multiply their potential. Here's a key principle. When 2 or 3 people agree on a common purpose, nothing is impossible. The challenge, of course, is getting to that agreement. That's where identification plays its role. If you can identify a shared purpose or a common goal and bring your time, energy, and resources together, the results can be extraordinary. Think about this. 1 + 1 doesn't have to equal 2. It can equal 10. That's the power of synergy. In ancient wisdom, there's a phrase that says 1 person can put 1,000 to flight, but 2 can put 10,000 to flight. That's not just addition, that's multiplication. When people combine their talents, skills, and purpose, their power grows exponentially. This is why extraordinary partnerships create extraordinary results. It doesn't take thousands of people to change the world. Even Jesus started with just 12. A small group with shared vision, purpose, and understanding can achieve the impossible. So what's the key to unlocking this potential? It starts with building that bridge, finding common ground, understanding each other, and working together. Next, let's talk about building bridges across differences. This is important, right? Imagine the challenge. A 40-year-old adult and a 12-year-old child. Now that's a stretch, isn't it? How do you find a way to connect? One of the best ways is to remember. Remember what it was like to be 12. I remember 12, you might say. I remember it like it was yesterday. And you know one of the challenges of being 12? You're not 13. Oh, I used to think, wow, if I could just get to 13, things would be different. But being 12, it felt like being stuck. The teenagers, they'd go off and do their thing. And there I was 12, I'd hear it over and over again. You're only 12, I thought, when does it get better? And finally it came 13. You see, kids can connect with that. The feeling of being stuck, the yearning for something more. Or maybe you share another story. Did you ever get chosen last? Oh, I've been there, standing there, waiting. I'll take him, I'll take her. And then, well, I guess I'll take you. Wow, talk about disappointment. Like that resonate, don't they? The feelings of not being enough, of misunderstandings. I thought they said one thing, but they meant something else. And guess what? I got in trouble. Kids know that feeling. That's identification. Finding common ground, shared experiences. And that's how bridges are built. Next, let's talk about something equally powerful. Attacking the problem, not the person. This is where communication becomes critical. It's a fine line and we've got to tread carefully. Sometimes we've got to put love and hate in the same sentence. That's a tricky balance. Even God said, I love you, but I hate your sinful ways. Now, isn't that fascinating? Because sometimes we might hear it wrong and think, oh, maybe God hates me, but he's clear. No, I love you. But I don't love the direction you're taking. As parents, as leaders, we've got to do the same. I love you, but I hate what's happening. I love you, but I hate this path you're on. I love you, but I hate to see you hurting. It's not about rejecting the person. It's about rejecting what's harmful, what's destructive. And kids need that clarity. They need to know what you love and what you hate, because it's both that help guide them. The old prophet said, love good and hate evil. Why? Because it's the evil, the mistakes, the miscalculations that can destroy us. And when someone points those things out with sincerity, with a desire to truly help, that's a gift. But here's the key. How you say it matters. Words are powerful. Imagine you're trying to help and you say, what's troubling you? That's concern, right? But what if instead you say, what's wrong with you? Oh, now that's different, isn't it? Same intention, but the words, they hit differently. And that difference can build a wall instead of a bridge. You meant to say, what's troubling you, but instead it came out as, what's wrong with you? Now listen, 10 years ago, we'd let that slide. Mistakes happen. But to still be making that same mistake 10 years later, that's where the challenge is. We have to recognize those errors and say, wait a minute. I need to learn to say it better. Why? Because better words set up better communication. Better communication sets the stage for understanding for something constructive, not something that falls apart because it was said wrong. So here's the idea. Correct those verbal missteps. Go after the problem of miscommunication. And here's a practical way. Use your own mistakes as the example. We call this the third-party approach. Say, you know, Mary, I've been in this same situation. I thought I was on the right track, but I wasn't. I made a mistake. A year later, I found myself in serious trouble. I had to work my way out of it. And let me tell you, you can avoid all that pain with just a little guidance. That's powerful. Why? Because you're making it personal. You're not attacking the other person. You're using yourself as the example. Say, I was the problem once. I was the one causing issues when I should have been adding value. I gave people grief when I should have been giving them thanks. It got me nowhere. That's called attacking the problem in yourself first. Now, here's another angle. The third-party stories say, I know someone who made a similar mistake, and if they were here today, they'd tell you with tears in their eyes, don't go down that road sometimes. It's the warning from others that saves us from disaster. Remember that old program, Scared Straight? They'd take troubled kids into prisons, let them talk to inmates who'd say, you don't want to be here. Let me show you what this life looks like. The kids would leave with wide eyes and a whole new perspective. That's the power of straight talk when it's done right, with the right intent. Now think about this. Building your house on the rock instead of the sand. How do you choose the rock? Simple. You find someone who built on the sand and suffered the consequences. Because on a calm, sunny day when the sky is blue and the clouds are white, it's easy to be fooled into thinking the sand will hold. But someone who's been through the storm, they'll tell you don't be deceived. The storms will come. And when they do, that house on the sand won't last. That's the challenge, isn't it? The storms. But here's the reality. Storms follow sunshine just like winter follows fall every single year. That's life. That's the deal. Years ago, I had the privilege of speaking to Chevron dealers and their management teams across America, even Alaska and Hawaii. Before I started, the top managers called me in for a chat. They said, Mr. Rohn, we'd like to get to know you. We've heard good things about your talks. But before we begin, can we ask you something? You travel the world, you meet executives, and you've been in business a long time. So tell us, what do you think the next 10 years will be like? I said, gentlemen, you've asked the right person. Their eyes lit up. I said, here's how the next 10 years will be. About like the last 10. That's life, isn't it? Seasons come, seasons go. The real question is, are you prepared? Have you learned from the storms? Are you building on the rock? Because if you're ready, you'll find the strength to stand tall no matter what comes your way. Winter follows fall. That's how it's always been. Some winters are easy and some are hard. Some come with challenges that test us, while others pass with little notice. But here's the beauty. Spring always follows winter. For how long now? 6,000 years of recorded history. The seasons haven't changed, and they won't. That's a universal principle, and sometimes people need to hear it. And here's the key. When you share this truth, communicate it well. Use every story, every analogy, every example you can muster to drive it home. Now let's talk about another vital part of communication, solutions. Solutions are about helping someone move forward. But here's the thing. To guide someone forward, sometimes you've got to take them back first. Jot this down. A solution often begins with understanding the errors of the past. Sometimes to help someone, you have to revisit those moments where things went wrong. Errors in judgment, in health, in career, in personal decisions. That's not always easy. It can be uncomfortable to face those tough times. But here's why it matters. When you examine the past, you find clarity. You see where the missteps happened, and that's the first step to correcting them. Once you've gone back, the next challenge is to bring them to the present. Say, look, here's where you are now. And guess what? Right now is filled with hope and possibility. That's the power of now. Now is the moment where change begins. It's the moment to start amending those errors in judgment, to start building a new destination by setting a new direction, because direction always determines destination. And then comes the best part, taking someone into the future. Imagine you've shown them the errors of the past, reminded them of the opportunities in the present, and now you paint a picture of what's possible. Transport them into the future, help them see a life where their problems are solved, where there's money in the bank, where health is restored. But here's the truth, you can't rebuild health, wealth, or happiness overnight. So what do? You describe the journey. Say in a few months, you'll notice the difference. By the end of the first year, it'll be incredible. And by the end of the third year, I promise you, your life will be unrecognizable in the best way. Why? Because consistent effort breeds results. Productivity leads to abundance. Activity creates progress, and progress transforms lives. So here's the framework. Take someone back to reflect on their past, show them the opportunities in the present, and then lead them into a vision of the future. And this, my friends, isn't just for your coworkers or your clients. It's for your family. It's for your children. Ask yourself this. What if you inspire your team at work but not your kids at home? What if you help your colleagues see a brighter future but leave your family in the dark? That's not the way it should be. Bring your family into the future. Describe the possibilities. Say, if we work together, if we support one another, we can create the most extraordinary family ever. We can draw strength from each other, build each other up, and achieve things we never thought possible. Here's how it can be. Here's how it will be. That's the power of clear communication. It brings hope to the present and light to the present. Make a note of this. The promise of the future is one of the most powerful forces in life. In the future, problems can be solved. Fortunes can be built. Productivity can soar to unimaginable heights. That's why learning to communicate the past, the present, and the future is one of the most remarkable challenges and one of the greatest opportunities you'll ever face. Here's a key to inspiring someone else. Help them see themselves as better than they are. Sometimes you have to start by helping them see themselves as they are. If your child is off track, you have to say, John, you've messed up. But here's the important part. Don't leave them there. Don't leave them in the mess. Sure, they've made mistakes. But here's the question. How quickly could they turn it all around? The answer. Almost overnight. And what's the promise of the future if they start walking a new road? It's extraordinary. It's colossal. It's life-changing. So go from, yes, you've messed up, no doubt, to, but here's how quickly you can recover. Here's how quickly you can multiply your potential in a positive direction. See, the gift of language is one of the most powerful tools we have. With words, you can rescue someone from despair and send them into the future with a picture of promise and possibilities. But here's the thing. Don't be lazy with your language. Don't let this incredible gift go unused. Someone asks, how good do I need to be at this? The answer, as good as you possibly can. And don't dismiss anyone as unimportant. Someone says, but it's just a child. What better place to start? Correcting a few errors and building a picture of the future for a child could change everything. That child could be the next superstar. That child could be the next great leader, the next innovator, the next person who starts enterprises that employ millions. This child, properly guided, inspired, and corrected, holds the promise of an extraordinary future. I know this firsthand because my mentor worked this on me. He looked me in the eye and said, Jim Rohn, if you keep up these disciplines, if you hone these skills, if you increase your productivity, learn to work with people and do your job well, I promise you, you're going to have a unique place in life. I promise you. And he didn't just stop there. He kept saying it. I promise you everything will change. I promise you a bank full of money. I promise you a heart full of gratitude. I promise you a family with extraordinary respect. I promise you an audience that won't quit. He painted the picture so vividly that I couldn't sleep at night during my first year of working on myself. I remember one day he said, one of these days, Jim, you'll walk into a room full of people and someone will whisper, that's him. That's the man, and guess what? He was right. The promise of the future is an awesome force. And when someone paints that picture for you, it's unforgettable. But here's the magic. You can do the same for someone else. You can be the one who says, I promise you the day will come. And then watch what happens. That's the power of a promise backed by belief and vision. I used to think, well, that could never happen to me. After all, I was raised in obscurity. One of my first skills in life, milking cows. I mean, come on. What does milking cows have to do with walking into a room and hearing someone whisper, that's him? That's the man. That's the famous man. But sure enough, year by year, audience by audience, book by book, as I walked this journey, that promise from my mentor started to come true. And today, as I arrived here, even before I stepped into this auditorium, I think I heard someone say it. That's him. That's the famous man. Ho! It still amazes me. And you know what I wish? I wish my mentor, Mr. Shoaff, was here to see it. You know what he would say? I told you, Jim, I told you this would happen. I told you to listen closely to what I was saying. I told you, I told you, I told you. And you know what? He was right. It's happening. It's real. And now I can't help but wonder, how much further can this go? How much more is possible? That's the gift of vision, the power of language to transport someone into the future. Even Jesus, the master teacher, used this same incredible tool. He gathers his little group and says, all right, we're going to have a tough time ahead. Some people are going to love what we're doing, but others, they're not going to like it at all. We'll be misunderstood. The devils will be after us, stirring up all the old drama that's been around since the beginning of time. But he didn't stop there. Jesus painted the bigger picture. He said, even though it's going to be hard, this is worth it. What we've got here is a magnificent idea, one so powerful it can change lives. And now it's time. Go out there and tell the story. Spread the message. And they did. They walked the streets. They told the story. They faced the opposition. They fought the devils. But here's the genius. Jesus gave them a promise to hold on to. He said, if we do this work well, I promise you, in my Father's house are many mansions. Now that's clever. He gave them a vision of the future that was so compelling they couldn't help but keep going. No wonder they persevered. No wonder they faced the challenges head on. But I can just imagine them coming back to Jesus after a tough day saying, Master, could you tell us about those mansions one more time? We've had a rough day out there. See, that's the power of vision. It's the ability to lift someone's eyes beyond the struggle of the moment and give them a picture of what's possible. That's what my mentor did for me. And it's what you and I can do for others. Because when people catch a glimpse of what's waiting for them in the future, they'll find the strength to keep going. You've got to do that with your children. Dazzle them. Take dazzling lessons if you have to. I don't know if there's a school for dazzling in Anaheim, but if there is, sign up. Why not? As a grandfather, I decided I didn't just want to be good. I wanted to be great. A 5-star grandfather. And you know what? I'm on my way dazzling my grandchildren every chance I get. Now I'm asking you to do the same. Whether it's your company, your team, or especially your family, make it your mission to dazzle them. Give them the promise of the future in a way that inspires action. When people can see the possibilities, they'll do extraordinary things. If they can't see, they'll take small, hesitant steps. But if they can see clearly, they'll take giant leaps. That's the power of vision. And it's up to you to share it. Be the person with solutions. Solution money, solution mission, biz, solution ideas. Solution ideas. Solutions of every kind. When people are stuck, be the one who says, here's the way forward. And to do that well, you've got to become a master persuader. So how do you do that? Let me give you the first principle. Become a great storyteller. The way to become a great storyteller is to gather stories. Testimonials, real-life examples, tales of triumph. Like this one I have about Sarah Alaro, a single mother in Mexico. She had no home, no car, no job, no money. Nothing. All she had was $1 and an extraordinary amount of courage. Today, she earns $4,000 a month, and she's a superstar in her community. She's even been invited to share her story, not just in Mexico, but around the world. Now that's a story. And how did she do it? Courage. If you've got enough courage, you don't need much money. Sarah had so much courage, all she needed was $1. If you've got enough courage, sometimes all you need is the smallest seed. Chance. Not a promise. Not a guarantee, just a chance. So I'm asking you, collect stories like Sarah's. Learn about people who started with nothing and made it. People who had no resources but found a way because they had the courage to keep going. And if you're talking to teenagers, gather teenage stories. Teenagers who were lost but found their way. Teenagers who were stuck but broke free. Teenagers who couldn't communicate but learned how to connect. Teenagers who transformed their own lives and are now helping others do the same. Those stories are powerful. And let me tell you, there are plenty of them out there. You just have to look. Stories inspire, they educate, they persuade, and they give people a roadmap to see what's possible. That's how you dazzle, and that's how you lead people toward a brighter future. If you're talking to single mothers, tell them about single mothers who've succeeded. Share their stories. Say, if Sarah can do it, you can do it too. Come on now. So it's a little tough, so you've got challenges. So there's opposition. What else is new? That's life. It's the constant drumbeat of the creator and the spoiler. But you've got to answer that drumbeat with action. Let's go. Let's go. See, this is the power of stories. Jesus himself was one of the greatest storytellers. He had this extraordinary gift. He didn't explain the kingdom of heaven in abstract, lofty terms. No, he brought it down to earth, made it relatable. He said, the kingdom of heaven is like. It's like a marriage. It's like a family. It's like you and me. It's like us. And suddenly people understood abstract ideas. People get lost, but relatable stories, those stick. Jesus said it's like, and then he'd tell a story, what a skill it's like. And then, boom, a parable. That's communication mastery, and you can do the same. Practice the craft, polish your words, and tell stories that connect. Now here's the next key. Borrow wisdom. If someone else has said it well, borrow it. Like a lyric from a song, a quote from a great thinker, or a line from a book that struck you deep. I love quoting Zig Ziglar. He said, if you help enough people get what they want, you can have everything you want. I didn't come up with that. Zig did. But it's just as effective when I say Zig said it. Borrow the wisdom of others. Some ideas are so profound, so well crafted, you couldn't think of them in a million years. Take Winston Churchill. He said, the truth is incontrovertible. Malice may attack it, ignorance may deride it, but in the end, there it is. Now you could stay up all night and not come up with something that good. So why not borrow it? Be a student of well-spoken words, a student of meaningful ideas, a student of lines that can change a person's perspective. Sometimes all it takes is one great phrase to inspire someone, especially a teenager. They hear it and suddenly they say, wow, now I get it. So gather those words, those stories, and share them. Now here's the next key, straight talk. Tell it like it is, no nonsense, no fluff, just the truth. People are ready for straight talk these days. They don't need it sugar-coated. They don't need it glamorized. Some folks are into affirmations to dress up the truth, but that's not helpful if it's not grounded in reality. You've heard those affirmations every day, in every way I'm getting better and better. But what if that's not the truth? Should you keep saying it anyway? No, the best affirmation is grounded in reality. Try this instead. I'm working on disciplines every day that are making me better and better and better. Now that's an affirmation worth saying because it's the truth if you're doing the work. Here's the principle. Affirmation without discipline is the beginning of delusion. If you're going to speak words of power, make sure they're backed by action. That's the difference between wishful thinking and true transformation. Straight talk, grounded talk, and talk that inspires people to move, to act, to grow. That's the kind of talk that changes lives. Plenty is possible without being foolish. Here's the truth. We are victims of our sins and our errors. That's the reality of life. But here's the exciting part. You can turn it around in one single day and head in a brand new direction. Just one decision, one shift. And here's what's remarkable. Within a few weeks, maybe just a few months, the early rewards of that new direction will be enough to keep you on track. Stay consistent, and soon enough, the fortune will belong to you. That's the truth. The truth is we've all made mistakes, stumbled, and gotten off track. But the other truth, just as powerful, is that you can turn it all around and you can do it today. Now, you can't arrive at your ultimate destination overnight, but you can change course in an instant. Why wait? The quicker you start, the quicker the abundance starts heading your way. And with that abundance comes energy, health, vitality, everything you need to accomplish extraordinary things. Let's say you've neglected your health. That's the truth, right? But here's the good news. Today can be a brand new day. Pick a new destination. Set a new course. That's also the truth. The truth is revealing, it's inspiring, and it's empowering. That's why we use it, not tricks, not gimmicks. The truth alone is enough. It's what sets you free. Free to do what? 1, correct old errors. 2, set up new disciplines that change everything. Everything. That's what the truth is for. To guide, to inspire, and to empower change. Now let's take it a step further. If you want to really help others in extraordinary ways, you've got to learn to deal in challenges. Life itself is a challenge. Sports are about challenges. Music is about challenges. The challenge to play so well that someone feels it, that someone's inspired by it. The challenge to speak so clearly, so passionately that someone understands for the very first time. And here's the magic of being human. Insight. Only human beings can do this. You can sit with someone, share an idea, and suddenly their eyes light up. I see it, they say. And you might think, but your eyes are closed. No, there's more than one way to see. There's the kind of vision that happens inside, the kind that reveals answers, possibilities, and new paths. All someone needs is to catch that glimpse of a solution, that spark of insight. They don't need the whole journey mapped out, just one step, one direction, one possibility. And within 6 months of acting on that insight, their entire life could multiply and transform. Isn't that something? So why not start today? Why not share that spark with someone else? That's the power of truth, the power of challenges, and the power of action. Within 1 year, the difference could be extraordinary. A person who was lost, who couldn't see their way, now becomes a person of influence, all because someone stepped in to help them see what was wrong, offered the possibility of change, and issued the challenge to rise up and do it. Not just to do it, but to do it well. That's the power of a guiding hand, a clear vision, and a challenge worth taking. But here's the best challenge of all. Let's go do it. Not just you go do it, you go fix it. You make the change. No, the magic is in let's get healthy. Let's change the world. Let's build an enterprise. Let's do it together. I'll tell you, I've always responded to this kind of challenge. Sometimes it's hard to pull yourself out of a slump. It's hard to find that fire on your own. But when someone steps in and says, come on, let's start a new program. Let's do the work. I'll be there, you be there, and we'll make it happen together. That's inspiring. That's contagious. That's how movements begin. There's power in that little word. It stirs the spirit. It lights a fire deep in the soul. It turns hesitation into action. Imagine someone saying, let's build a team. Let's go for the championship. Let's win the trophy. Wow. That's the kind of challenge that can keep you up at night dreaming big. That's the kind of challenge that brings out the extraordinary in people. And here's the beauty. Together, no one can match us. Alone, we're vulnerable, exposed to the winds of doubt and resistance. But together as a team, we're unstoppable. Let's create a bond, a shared mission. And who doesn't want to be part of that? Who doesn't want to join a team that believes they can conquer the world? So here's what I suggest. Find ways to say, let's start, let's push forward, let's create something incredible. It's simple, but it's powerful. Now let's talk about another important part of communication, tools of last resort. These are not your first move, not even your second or third. These are for moments when every other method has failed and you're left with no other choice. Use them sparingly and with care. One of these tools is the direct attack. This is when you stop using examples or third parties. You stop softening the edges. Instead, you go straight to the person and address the issue head on. Now, this is delicate. You've got to be careful because it's a sharp tool. You don't want to wound someone, you want to wake them up. Before you ever use a direct attack, exhaust all other options. Use yourself as an example. Share stories, bring in testimonials, create an atmosphere of understanding. But if none of that works, if the person remains stuck then, and only then, do you say you. And even then, you must tread lightly. Approach it with care, with respect, and only as a last resort. Because the goal isn't to push them down, it's to help them stand up, see clearly, and move forward. That's the art of persuasion at its finest. Here's another one. Sarcasm. Sarcasm, an interesting tool, but one that demands precision and care. You see, sarcasm has a sharp edge. It can cut through, but it can also wound if wielded recklessly. Think of it like a scalpel. It's not for everyday use, but there are moments when nothing else will do. Take the story of Job as an example. Job was in a tough spot, lamenting and questioning everything. And then God steps in, not with gentle persuasion, but with a bit of divine sarcasm. Where were you, God asks, when I laid the foundations of the earth? When I set the stars in place, it was a wake-up call, a jolt. Job needed that moment. The timing was right, the message was clear, and the impact was undeniable. But notice, God didn't open with that approach. It came as a last resort. Now let's bring it down to our level. Imagine someone walking into a meeting late and you call them out in front of the group. Where have you been? That question is loaded. It's not just asking about their whereabouts. It's saying you don't care enough to show up on time. And in front of an audience, that kind of comment can embarrass and alienate. Is that the result you're looking for? Probably not. Instead, consider this. Pull them aside later. Keep it private. Say, listen, I noticed you were late again. We need everyone to show up on time to keep things running smoothly. Let's make sure this doesn't happen again. Direct, respectful, and clear. No sarcasm needed. The truth is, sarcasm should be reserved for when all other tools have failed, when the stakes are high and the relationship can handle the weight of it. Use it sparingly and with intention. Like any tool, it's not about the tool itself, it's about the hand that wields it. Here's the next one, scolding. Scolding, a tool that has its place, but one you must handle with care. Scolding is like a sharp blade. It can cut through to make a point, but if overused, it leaves scars that don't heal easily. Sometimes, as a last resort, it's necessary. You might need to get someone's attention to draw a hard line and say, enough is enough. And when done sparingly, it can work. The cut heals, the lesson is learned, and life moves on. But when it's constant, that's when the real damage begins. Think of children who grow up in a household where every day brings a new scolding. A slash here, a cut there. Over time, those words leave marks that don't just fade away. They grow into insecurities, doubts, and disadvantages. The child learns to live in fear of the next strike, never feeling good enough, always bracing for criticism. And as they grow, those scars show up in their relationships, their confidence, their decisions. Too much scolding is like overwatering a plant. It drowns instead of nourishes. Now, there's another side to this. Some places in the world take discipline to extremes. In some countries, if you steal, they cut off your hand. Severe, isn't it? Maybe too severe. You might think, couldn't they just cut a piece of the finger instead? But here's the thing. It's effective. They'll ask, have you stolen anything since? And the answer is clear. No, not with one hand. It works, but at what cost? It's a harsh, unforgiving method that leaves no room for redemption. The same principle applies to scolding. Yes, it can work. It can get someone back on track. But when it becomes cruel or excessive, it crosses a line. In a society like ours, we strive to avoid what we call cruel and unusual punishment. And that's the balance we need to find, not just in our justice system, but in our words and actions. So what's the takeaway? Use scolding sparingly as a tool of necessity, not a habit. Be firm when you must, but never forget the power of encouragement, guidance, and understanding. Because while a sharp word might get someone's attention, it's a kind word that inspires change. And that's where true growth begins. Now, parents, let me take a moment to talk to you about what we call cruel and unusual punishment. It's an important subject because discipline, when done right, builds character, but when done wrong, it can do lasting damage. That's why it takes a little creativity, a little wisdom, and a lot of restraint to get it right. Now, let me share a principle with you. Something old Joe Kennedy once told his son, John F. Kennedy. It's a powerful piece of advice that applies not just to leadership, but to parenting and communication too. Here's what old Joe said: if it is not necessary to change, it is necessary not to change. What does that mean? It means you don't make a move unless you absolutely have to. The same goes for scolding, sarcasm, or any kind of severe action. If it's not absolutely necessary, then it's necessary not to do it. Imagine a mother who screams all day at her children. Morning till night, she's yelling about this and that, creating an endless stream of noise. What happens? The kids tune it out. They get used to it. Their friends come over, and when they hear mama screaming, the kids just shrug and say, that's just how she is. She screams at everything. But here's the danger. One day, her 3-year-old runs toward the street, and a truck is coming. Mama screams, but this time nobody listens. Her voice has lost its power because it's been overused. Now let's rewrite the story. Imagine a mother who's calm and measured, who rarely raises her voice. But on that crucial day when the child is running into danger, she screams and the world stops. Everyone pays attention because they know this is serious. That's the power of reserving your tools for when they're truly needed. So jot this down. Save your screams. Save your scolding. Save the harsh words for the moments when they're absolutely necessary. Because discipline isn't about noise, it's about impact. And when you reserve those tools for last resort moments, that's when they work their magic. In parenting and leadership in life, remember, less is more when it comes to severity. Use it wisely, and the results will speak for themselves. Here's another one, temper. Temper, that fiery spark we all have. Now, temper can be a tool, but it's one of those tools you use sparingly and only when absolutely necessary. If it's not necessary to lose your temper, then it's necessary not to lose your temper. That's the principle. Hold on to that emotional explosion unless there's no other way forward. Sure, you could blow up, let loose, and let someone have it. But here's the thing, if you do that every time, it loses its meaning. And more importantly, it damages the very fabric of trust and understanding. Here's a foundational truth. The first law of a civilized society is the restraint of power, the restraint of the impulsive, destructive side of our nature. Think of a little boy who gets angry and hits another child over the head. If nobody steps in to restrain him, he'll do it again. And worse, he might start to enjoy it. That's how you begin to shape an uncivilized person. So what marks a civilized society? It's restraint. Restraint of emotion, restraint of words, restraint of power. It's knowing you have the strength to lash out but choosing not to. It's about control, not chaos. And this applies to communication too. When we let our temper fly, we might win the moment, but we can lose the long game. We can create a situation so tense, so damaged, it may never fully recover. It's effective in the short term, sure, but at what cost? The key is this: be powerful but careful. Be firm but measured. Temper your temper, your temper. The world doesn't need more explosions, it needs more control. Master that, and you'll not only lead a civilized life, you'll help build a more civilized world. Now again, Jesus, his life offers so many lessons, and one of them is restraint. According to the record, during his 3.5 years of ministry, Jesus only lost his temper a few times. Not a few times a day, not a few times a week, just a few times in years. That's remarkable. But when he did, look out. There's that unforgettable moment when he entered the temple, saw the money changers defiling a sacred space, and let loose. He overturned tables, grabbed a whip, and cleared the place out with the force of his righteous anger. The message? He wasn't playing around. But here's the key. He didn't do it every day. That kind of power, that kind of intensity was reserved for moments when it was absolutely necessary, when the stakes were high and the principle couldn't be compromised. And that's your lesson today. Restraint of power. Yes, you can. Yes, you're capable. But just because you can doesn't mean you should. Whether it's in your community, your company, your family, or your relationships, use power wisely. Take a father, for example. A father must be careful with his power. He could dominate, he could discipline harshly, he could leave his children living in fear. But a great father knows how to hold back, how to teach with strength, but also with love. Restraint. Now think about an elephant. It's big, strong, friendly even, but an elephant has to be careful where it steps. Why? Because even without meaning to, it could crush a mouse underfoot. It wasn't malicious, but its size makes it powerful, and with great power comes great responsibility. And here we are in a room filled with powerful people. People with influence, people with ideas, people with the ability to make an impact. I'm asking you to be careful where you step. Be careful what you say, what you write, and how you engage with others. Be wise but careful. Be strong but easy. Good communication belongs to you. Use it well. This opportunity we have to share ideas, to learn, to grow is extraordinary. I can't tell you how exciting it is for me to be here with you sharing these thoughts. Tomorrow brings more chances to build, to refine, to elevate ourselves and those around us. Let's make it count. Here's the last thought I'll share with you on communication. Here it is. The more you care, the stronger you can be. That's the principle. The deeper your care, the greater your strength. Even children who can sense insincerity a mile away will let you come down hard on them if they really know that you care. When they see your heart in it, when they know there's no ego, no malice, just genuine concern, they'll listen. A child will endure the tough conversation if they're convinced it comes from a place of love. But here's the other side of that. If you're going to be strong, you have to care. Without care, strength turns into something else. Cold, detached, ineffective. Some conversations, especially the heavy ones, don't even make sense without care. Without the tears, without the breaking of your heart, it's not a conversation, it's just belligerence. Take this example. I wouldn't mind a minister warning me of hellfire for my sins if he does it with tears, not with joy. If he's broken by the message, if his heart is visibly aching, then I'll listen. But if he delivers it dry-eyed, detached, almost relishing the thought, what happens? People dismiss it as ego, as a performance. The weight of the message is lost without the weight of care. And isn't that true in every kind of communication? If your heart isn't breaking for the person you're speaking to, if your care doesn't shine through, then even the strongest message comes across as hollow. But when your care is genuine, when the tears flow, when your sincerity is unmistakable, now you're effective. Now you can cover the tough ground. So let this principle guide you. To be strong, you must care. And the more you care, the stronger you can be. With that foundation, you'll find yourself able to navigate even the most challenging conversations with grace, impact, and lasting influence.